to just play it. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40! Can't wait! Let's go!
Good morning and welcome to Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show with Chris and Mo here on Sports Empire Network. I am Chris and that is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing well off of a crazy football Sunday. It was insane. Like a lot of the picks that we made kind of went all over the place.
It was a wild football Sunday for sure, Mo. And Mo, I want to start the show off with this. And I don't do this a lot. And I especially don't do this, Mo, with New York Jet fan. But I want to start off the show this morning by apologizing to New York Jets fans. And I'm going to apologize, Mo, because up to this point, I have really been critical of Zach Wilson. And I have really said, it's nothing personal. Zach Wilson he's doing the best he can out there, and it is what it is. Well, this morning, Mo, I'm going to make it personal. Zach Wilson's a bad quarterback, and you are not going to find any level of success. And last night was proof of that. Mo, last night, everything lined up exactly the way the New York Jets needed it. Your defense played great. You turned the ball over. You made Patrick Mahomes look ridiculous out there. He had 2 interceptions. He should have had 2 more. You had everything fall into your lap to set yourself up for a chance to win that game if you had a competent quarterback. And Zach Wilson, I will give Zach Wilson credit. He played really well for the most part. But what happened with Zach Wilson, Mo? Well, a couple of things. One, he missed a wide open person in the end zone. He threw the ball about 1.5 yards too far to the left. You throw that ball on the money, that's a touchdown. 2, he missed Garrett Wilson over the top, wide open. He had 2.5 steps on his closest defender. You hit that ball, that's a touchdown. And then with the game on the line, 7 minutes to go, tie game, your defense gives you the ball back. You're marching down the field. He turns the ball over because he can't handle a snap. Now, I'm not going to kill him too much for the snap. It happens a lot in the NFL. It is what it is. But, Mo, at the end of the day, there are no moral victories in the NFL. And I don't know about you, but at the end of the game, they're panning to the sideline and things are wrapping up. And it looks like the defense isn't going to get the ball back for Zach and the offense. And we look over to the sideline and Zach Wilson's on a knee and players are just coming up to him and they're patting him on the back and he's got his head down. It looks like they're talking up Zach Wilson and the announcers are talking about how, Zach gave his all and, he really almost outdueled him. What in the world is going on here? Why are we sitting here acknowledging and comforting Zach Wilson because he almost outplayed Patrick Mahomes? Why are his teammates coming up and being like, you were so close, Zach, you played so well? This is the NFL, Mo. This is the National Football League. You don't get credit for almost winning. You don't see people over there patting Josh Allen on the back and trying to talk him up when he almost beats Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, no one was on the sideline yesterday with Tua when Tua got rolled by the Buffalo Bills being like, it's all right, you tried your hardest. You hung in there for 1.5 quarters. It just didn't go your way. You win some, you lose some, you move on. But I don't know. Yesterday, I mean, we're about to bring JG on the show, and maybe JG as an athlete can give me some sort of a different opinion on this. But I'm watching the New York Jets basically coddle the crap out of Zach Wilson yesterday because he played decent and just didn't get the ball back at the end of the game, which, by the way, even if he did, he probably would have thrown an interception. Let's be honest. It's Zach freaking Wilson. He had the ball in his hands with a chance to put his team on top and didn't do it. But something just sat wrong with me watching the team the way they coddled him at the end of the game. Like, and I'm not going to say he was sitting there crying, but basically, he just looked like a sad puppy on the sidelines because he played so hard and he didn't get a chance to get the ball back. Welcome to the morning show, JG. How are you this morning?
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, JG. JG, what did you make of the Zach Wilson at the end of the game yesterday? I mean, it was literally like, I had like Little League World Series vibes, right? Like just that moment of like gut-wrenching, just defeat and sadness because you sink everything into it and then you lose in the end. And then I paused for a minute and I'm like, hang on a minute. This is not the Little League World. This is National Football League, JG. What was that? What did you make of that?
So I can look at it in a different way because again, he has faced some turmoil with some players possibly speaking in the media that probably shouldn't be saying what they're saying, or some leaks. Maybe it's not players, maybe it's a leak, or maybe just a story that's being out there. At this point, that maybe some of the players, the leadership of the players in the Jets are not very thrilled that it's being out into the media, stuff like that. If there's players are not happy at Saleh for supporting him and whatnot, maybe that's something that should have stayed in-house, or maybe that's something that's not actually 100% true that's getting out there. So it could be looked at in a way as a rallying point, like, hey, you know what, Zach, you busted your ass for us tonight, and you gave us your all, and we had a chance to win because you took the maturity that you have learned over the last couple of seasons and you performed to the standard of what we expected as a number 2 overall pick. I think that's a sign of respect. Now, are they saying it? Now, is that from the players that went up to him and said, is that, hey, you know what? Yeah, you're our quarterback. No, that's not that. I won't go that far, but I think that's more of, hey, you know what? You busted your ass for us tonight. And we saw, again, as you said, he played well.
He did.
Not taking anything away from that. He played well, and he gave them chances to win. Mahomes gave the Jets chances to win as well by some of the throws here, but focusing mostly on the Jets, he played well enough. And as much as I absolutely despise Chris Collinsworth, Collinsworth sounded shocked, and I get we all probably were. And why I despise Collinsworth, that's not your job to be shocked on national TV about a player playing well. But I digress. It's a whole different topic. But, when Collinsworth even made some comments saying, oh, my goodness, who's this? Is this Aaron Rodgers disguised as Zach Wilson? Well, that's where you as a player go, you know what? Man, he's balling. He's giving us a chance. This is all we've asked for. This is all we as a defense. I'm sure Sauce Gardner and Williams and all those guys were like saying, this is all we've asked for. Just give us a chance to win a game. And he did. He gave them a chance to win a game against the reigning Super Bowl champions. So I think that's a sign of respect that they went up to him and said, you know what, hey, you did your thing today. And athletes do that. Athletes do. It's not necessarily like I won't go as far as a coddling, and if he played horrible, and which is the 3rd time in a row that he played absolutely horrible, and they go, hey, you're fine, it's okay. Different story. But because he played to the standard of what is expected of him to give this team a chance to win, I think that's where the players go, you know what, hey, I see you. I see that you're taking it right now. And you're taking the lumps and you're learning from it, and you're showing us that your maturity, which is the question mark for Zach Wilson when he came into the league. Was he mature enough? And we had the stories that were going on about him off the field, not nothing bad, but maturity question marks of him. Now we're kind of seeing a little bit of the maturity kick in a little bit. And I think that's where the players went up to him and said, you know what? Hey, I see you.
So Zach Wilson and the Jets, Mo, they're 1-3. Obviously not the position they want to be in. And again, I say this because it's the truth. There are really no moral victories in the NFL unless you're a complete disaster of a team in a rebuild mode. But aside from that, they had the Denver Broncos next week, which I think needs to be a win. They need to beat the Denver Broncos to move to 2-3 because they have the Eagles coming in after that, which is going to be another test for both sides of the ball. Can the defense slow down the Eagles offense? Can Zach Wilson survive the Eagles defense? Mo, despite the performance we saw from Zach this week, if he comes out and he doesn't lead them to a victory against against the Broncos, and they're sitting at 1-4, going to play the Eagles, you almost have to look at it as at that point, that's the season, right? I mean, if they beat the Broncos and they get to 2-3, you have a chance to get to 500 against the Eagles. But even if you don't, you're still only 2 games under. And you look at the schedule coming up after the Eagles, there's some winnable games on there. You got the Raiders, you got the Giants, you still got the Chargers, the Bills, and the Dolphins coming up after that. But once you get to 4 or 5 losses, Mo, you're kind of in that territory where your room for error doesn't exist anymore if you want to make it into the playoffs. And you need to, if you're Zach Wilson and the Jets, when you're playing teams that are on your level or that are considered winnable games, you got to win those games. The Chiefs, obviously, I don't think anyone thought that was a winnable game for them. So I understand Jet fan this morning being like, well, we had that. I get it, but you didn't win that. So now you need to look at what's next on your schedule that is winnable, and that is the Broncos, Mo. So if they fall to the Broncos next week, aren't we basically back where we were coming into this week, which is it's just a disaster of a season? There's hope right now. There's hope.
There is hope. Here's the interesting part. When they won the first game of the season against Buffalo, it's a victory. You take the victory, but even in victory, it didn't feel that hopeful. You know what I mean? They had a hangover from losing Aaron Rodgers. And then last night, I thought Zach Wilson played as well as Zach Wilson can possibly play. I thought he played really, really well. Now, combat that with Mahomes might have had one of the worst games I've seen the guy have in a minute. And still, going forward, like you said, a team like the Broncos that's still in disarray, if you can't beat that football team, that's not a good sign for where your team is going forward, right? I do think with Zach Wilson, we use the term a lot in sports, case by case. I think he's a good example of case by case. So I don't know if he's more mature. I just think he had a great game for him last night. He could very well turn around and go 10 for 29 with 3 picks versus the Broncos, and they're not a good defense. So I don't know. I will say this: if he's mature, if there's actually a sign of maturity, then against that Broncos defense, he should have no problem moving the football up and down the field. They made Justin Fields yesterday look like Tom Brady at his peak. That's how bad that defense is. So I really do think it's a case-by-case basis. I'm not rooting against Zach Wilson. I'm only judging off of what I actually see on the field. I was impressed with how well he played throughout the game, but I was also looking at the fact that one of the best quarterbacks, the best quarterback in football, he kind of kept him in the game with his play. He was awful. He was awful. So to me, I do think the Denver game is a big game because I don't expect them to beat Philly.
And to JG's point, it's so interesting to watch that game without bias and just listen to the announce team talk about both quarterbacks, because JG was right. There were so many times in that game where they couldn't even compliment Zach Wilson without using Aaron Rodgers' name. It was so much about, well, he's doing what Aaron can do. Or I don't know how many times Zach would walk to the line and they'd be like, well, he's got 2 calls to go with here. But if Aaron was in there, he would have 2 calls, and then he would use 11 hand signals, and he could break it off into 14 different plays. But Zach's just working with 2 calls. Like, I get Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't dispute that. But I feel like you're kind of getting into a territory there where now you're kind of almost saying Zach Wilson isn't as smart or doesn't have the capacity to be as intelligent. Chris,
that's perfect, because they kept talking about, they made it seem like, well, he can only do basic reads and basic play calls because he can't understand the terminology, right?
Right.
They act like they had to water everything down, and I don't think that was the case at all. There's just some things as a quarterback, physically, he can't do that Aaron Rodgers can do. And that's not a knock against him. There's a lot of quarterbacks that can't do what Aaron Rodgers can do.
And I can walk, JG, you could walk up to the line. You could look at the defense. I'm not saying you're going to read the defense correctly. All right. Again, a lot of this has to do with Zach's talent and football intelligence. But to tell me Zach Wilson can't walk up to the line, look at a defense, call an audible, and tell 4 different receivers to run 4 different routes, that's asinine. He 100% can do that. Now, the difference is when Aaron Rodgers does it, it's because he's reading the defense. He knows what the defense is going to do. He's tricking this corner into doing this. He knows the safety is going to bait and do that. That's where Aaron Rodgers is genius at it. But to sit there and say Zach Wilson doesn't have the ability to walk up to the line of scrimmage and run 6 different plays, that's not the case at all. And then you look at the other side, JG, and the one play that really stands out for me with Patrick was the pick he threw where he throws like the rainbow, like practice baseball pass pitch in the outfield where you're throwing pop-ups to the outfielders. He basically threw one of those and it came up like 6 yards short, and someone's out there just playing center field and picks it off. And Collinsworth is like, well, no one throws the rainbow pass like Patrick Mahomes. But this one just came up a little. What are you talking? No one throws that at all. No quarterback wants to throw a ball that's in the air for 8 seconds because that's what's going to happen. There's going to be 3 defenders around it by the time the ball comes back down to the ground, which is what happened here. It was insane, JG.
Yeah, like I said, that's partly why I don't like Chris Collinsworth. And when my Saints play on Sunday Night Football, I mute the TV and listen to the radio. But, I mean, I can agree that there's things okay, the elites of elites can diagnose, read, and absolutely just tell you exactly what a defense is going to do. Again, that's the elites of the elites, the Tom Brady's, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees. I mean, like, Aaron Rodgers. Those guys are on another level of how smart they are and how quickly they process. And that is the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate goal for every quarterback to get to. But is everybody going to be able to get to that? I remember even listening, and maybe you guys remember this too. There was an interview, Brett Favre, not an interview, but it was a mic'd up part. Brett Favre didn't even know how to read a defense when he played most of the time. He didn't even know what a dime defense was when he got to the Green Bay Packers. I mean, but it was just the fact of the matter was that he was super talented and was able to get away with some of the stuff. You have a lot of quarterbacks that get away with that kind of stuff. Is Zach Wilson one of them? No, well, not right now. No, I don't think Zach Wilson is talented enough to get away with it. But what I saw last night watching and being in the unbiased is I didn't have a dog in the fight. I'm not a Jets fan. I'm not a Chiefs fan. I just watched the game. And, you saw moments of growth. Isn't that what everybody's been waiting to see out of Zach over the last 2 seasons was growth since he came into the league? Everybody knew he was a project. That's why the Jets got killed for taking him at number 2. He was a project quarterback that probably needed a little bit more time. Probably didn't need to be drafted number 2, probably in the middle of the first round to the end of the first round. Maybe the second round is what I kind of thought Zach Wilson was going to be. But he needed time to learn the game. He needed time. So we're seeing growth. It just took 3 seasons now in learning from Aaron Rodgers to be able to see, okay, here's some moments of what you look like if you are actually doing the job the right way. Whereas prior, you didn't do the job right way. You looked god-awful, and you were close to being out of the league. So time was necessary. He just never was given the opportunity. Jordan Love didn't get thrown into the fire immediately. He sat and waited behind Rodgers for a few seasons, and we've seen moments of growth out of him so far. So what could have been if Zach had 2-3 seasons to learn and be able to play as a starter now? Again, hindsight's 20/20. We don't know, but we're kind of seeing a little bit now where growth is what is needed more than anything else for Zach. If he continues to show week by week growth, then I think we have something. We've kind of figured out what he can be. Is it the elite of the elite? No. Is it the elite? No, probably not. But is he going to be a really good quarterback? He can be. I think he can be a really good quarterback, which in a league that is searching for really good quarterbacks. Again, you only have a couple elite of elites. You don't have a couple of elites. So a league of really good quarterbacks. He can survive and have a good career as a good quarterback with a defense like the New York Jets have and be able to give them opportunities to win games.
I want JG being a spokesman for the Jets because I don't have a dog in the fight either, JG. I really don't. I'm just a football fan, love watching the game. But listening to you, I'm inspired for Zach Wilson. I am. I'm not even joking. I just think that JG could just sell you. JG's got a gift of gab. I'm there. I will agree on this. I think if he can show consistent growth, I think you have a valid and strong point. And that's the key, right? Growth and development as he progresses through the season. So I agree 100% with that point.
And it wouldn't help if he had a better offensive line too, gentlemen. I'm just putting that out there. I mean, you look at quarterbacks, and I'll talk about Jimmy G all day. Jimmy G is an average quarterback, but when you put great pieces around him, he looks above average. So what would Zach Wilson look like on a Niners team that Jimmy G was on, that he was bringing to the playoffs and bringing to a Super Bowl? I mean, I don't know, because I would argue that talent-wise, Zach is probably more talented in some aspects than Jimmy G. He definitely has a bigger arm, right? I think he's a little more mobile. So like you said, JG, that it would be interesting to see if the Jets could really build the offensive side of the ball as stacked as the defensive side is, at least with the offensive line, to give Zach Wilson a fighting chance out there. But Mo, before we move on to baseball, JG, we got a lot of baseball stuff to talk to that. But
Postseason baseball.
Before we move on, Mo, I'm just going to say this. There's leaning into something, and then there's what NBC did last night with Taylor Swift. They didn't just lean into Taylor Swift. They basically built an entire football game around Taylor Swift's presence, from the opening of the game, which was specifically designed for Taylor Swift being in attendance, to all the Taylor Swift shots during the game, to all the Taylor Swift lyric quotes throughout the game. I mean, they embraced the existence of Taylor last night, Mo.
And I'm sure all the Taylor Swift fans, the Swifties, loved it. And a lot of them probably watched the game, even the ones who don't care for football, right? If she's part of it, they're part of it. I'm with you. I thought NBC went more than overboard. Like, it almost became about her than the game, right? It was more about her than the game. Her reactions to plays. I don't even know if she's a big football fan. So maybe she is. Maybe she's sitting there like you or JG and going, he should have saw that safety come down or something. Maybe she knows ball like that. I don't know. But I know that NBC they were clearly invested in her presence.
There was a point, Mo, in the middle of that game where Collinsworth made the comment. And again, I hate bagging on people, but I think it was like the middle of the third quarter where he goes, I thought we were going to spend most of the night talking about Taylor Swift, and then a game broke out. So that just kind of gives you the mindset of what they had prepared coming into that game. All right, JG, we got Major League Baseball playoffs coming up. Best time in baseball. Baseball season's a grind, all right? And I say this all the time. As a Yankee fan, I watch more baseball than most because I think most baseball fans are more casual. They check in on it. But to actually, sit there and watch a lot of the games beginning to end, it's a lot. You need to really like baseball if you're going to be that guy. Playoff baseball, though, completely different vibe. Every pitch matters. And for them to flip that switch when they go into the playoffs to create that much buzz over every single moment, I love what MLB does. I don't know why it works that way, but it really is incredible. But JG, I'm going to put you on the spot this morning. We're going to run through the bracket real quick, and you're just going to react, and you're just going to pick winners, all right? And we're going to see where we come up with on the other side. Now, I have a pretty good guess of where we're going to come up with in the NL, but maybe you'll surprise me. Maybe there'll be some dark horses, but we're going to start over there. 6-3 matchup, Diamondbacks and Milwaukee. Does Arizona have a chance to move on as a 6?
Arizona has a chance. I don't know where the youth is going to kick in. Teams who have their first experience in postseason, they're very hit or miss. And I think there's not a lot of veteran presence who have postseason experience on this team that can help get these young kids, Corbin Carroll being one, Ketel Marte being the other on the lineup. Is there enough veteran presence to help elevate them and have them prepared? Whereas a Milwaukee Brewers team that has postseason experience, and for all sports, MLB, NFL, NBA, experience matters. I don't think the Diamondbacks have enough to beat the pitching of the Milwaukee Brewers. Brewers are one of the best pitching teams in baseball, with Corbin Burns leading that staff. I think he's going to really have. There's a fire behind Corbin Burns right now because of all the turmoil that he and the Brewers have been able to kind of endure with the arbitration last year, the comments that were being made. He's kind of pitching with a big chip on his shoulder, waiting for his time to get out of Milwaukee. I think this is a chance for him to say, you know what, I am the ace and I deserve to be paid as such. So I'm going to show you why that is the case. I think the Brewers. I think this series will go 3. I do think this series will go 3, but I think the Brewers will pull it off just with the experience and the pitching that they have is deeper than the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Who gets the honor of playing your Atlanta Braves, Miami or Philly?
I hate it because I am terrified of this team, what they did to us last year. I think, again, talking about experience, Miami doesn't have a lot of postseason experience right now with the roster they have. Philadelphia has a lot returning from that team that went to the World Series last year, adding Trey Turner, who's been to a World Series and won a World Series as well. The pitching is going to be a big question mark for this team, for the Phillies, but I do think that they will surpass Miami. I think they sweep. I think they win in 2, and Philadelphia advances.
Does any one of those 4 teams have a chance to get past the Dodgers or the Braves?
Brewers have a chance against the Dodgers, and it goes back to the pitching side, is what I just said. I don't think they can score with the Dodgers, but I think they have enough to shut down that Dodgers offense. The Dodgers offense has not been the same high-powered offense. I know Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts have been outstanding all year, but who can you say has been the same for that team all year? There hasn't been someone else who's been as consistent, not to the elite level of Mookie and Freddie, but there's not been a lot of consistency on that team other than those two. So again, goes back to the pitching side. Can they outpitch the Dodgers? Which a Dodgers team that doesn't have Tony Gonsolin, they don't have Walker Buehler, Julio Urias is basically gone from the team now as well. So who, other than Clayton Kershaw, who's pitching for this team? Lance Lynn? Do we trust Lance Lynn at this point of his career to win you a postseason game? I don't. I don't. So I think the Brewers have a chance to upset the Dodgers in the NLDS because they do pitch better. Can their pitching hold the offense of the Dodgers? That's the biggest question, because the Dodgers in the regular season have won 5 of 6 against the Brewers and swept them the last time they played. So there's going to be some question marks for both teams here, but I think the Brewers have, of the two, Brewers have a chance to beat the Dodgers. And I said, I'm terrified of Philadelphia for what they did to us last year. We were a better team than the Phillies last year, and the Phillies absolutely punked us out of the postseason. Now, Braves are a better team this year. They're a healthier team this year. They're a deeper team this year, but it's a division rivalry. I hate the Phillies. Phillies hate the Braves. It is a scary place to play. That, and talk about the only team that in the postseason that can match batter for batter, lineup for lineup, and can score with the Braves. That is the Philadelphia Phillies.
On the other side, we have the Baltimore Orioles as the number 1 seed. Do you think there is going to be any? I mean, the Orioles have not been here in a while. This is not, known territory for this Orioles team. 2 seed is Houston. They're always here in this position. And then you look at the rest of the field: Toronto, Tampa, Texas, and the Twins. Let's just start with Texas and Tampa, which I think could shape up to be a really nice short series. Who do you see facing Baltimore?
I feel like if the Rangers ended the season on a higher note, I think I could say Rangers, but because they had the letdown and lost the division, I'm leaning toward Tampa. I'm leaning to Tampa. Tampa pitches a little bit better. They can score. I know the Rangers did own the series a little throughout this regular season with Tampa. I believe they won the series against Tampa Bay in the regular season. But because, again, momentum matters in the postseason too. It's not the best team that always wins. It's the hottest team that always wins. Usually wins. I won't say always, but usually wins. And Texas right now, having the lead in the division and blowing it and giving it to the Astros on the last day, and now you have to go play in a playoff series. That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt their mentality right now. I think the series will go 3 games. I think the Rays will pull it off and win the series in St. Pete, and Tampa will advance.
is there any sort of ironic comfort in playing a division rival in the playoffs? Just based on the fact, if you're a team that hasn't been there a lot, so if the Rays win, they're going to play Baltimore. If you're Baltimore, can you look at that and be like, we played this team 18 times this year. This is nothing new for us. They know us. We know them. Let's just go out there and do it. Is there like an ironic comfort in that when the stakes are so high, as opposed to them playing a team like Texas, who was a favorite to make the World Series coming in, who they're not as familiar with, where there could be a little more nerves involved? Or am I just completely off base here?
No, in a way it is, because the scouting reports are so easy to be able to remember, because these guys. Again, you said we've played them numerous times throughout the season. You've played them, for most of the part the previous season that they've been there. But at the same time, there is comfort in knowing the scouting reports and just knowing. But at the same time, you have a fear that you make one mistake. You know that a player will beat you on that team if you make one mistake. Whereas if you have an opponent, if it's Rays, if it was Rays and Twins instead of Rays and let's just put it this way, Rays and Rangers right now, not a division opponents. So you have a little bit more in-depth knowledge in the scouting reports. You have to remember a little bit more, but you understand that maybe if you make a mistake, that hey, there's a guy on that team that probably won't make me regret that mistake. Whereas if you play a division opponent, one pitch from this guy or one pitch, I'm done. So there is a comfort as far as knowing the scouting report, just like it's the back of your hand from a division opponent. But at the same time, there is that fear factor a little bit more that, oh my God, I know this team so well that if I make that one mistake, I'm going to get burned by it. So it's a devil's advocate type of way of what you look at it and say, hey, yes, it's comfort, but at the same time, you have a high anxiety knowing that this is going to be a very tough matchup.
Which team has the better chance of getting past Houston, Toronto or Minnesota?
That's going to be an interesting. Just talking about the wild card matchup of Toronto and Twins. It's a very interesting matchup because you could not have two polar opposite teams. Whereas Toronto scores and their offense is really strong, Twins' offense is not. But the Twins' pitching staff has been one of the best all season, and the Toronto Blue Jays have one of the I won't say one of the worst, but in regards of the postseason teams, one of the most inconsistent pitching staffs they've had all year. So the dynamic of this series is going to be interesting. I do think Toronto provides a tougher test than Houston, just because you have to score. So my thinking of this postseason is going to be a tale of two versions of postseason play. National League is going to be kind of almost like the basic, hey, pitching is going to matter. You have a lot of good pitching still in this in this side of the bracket with some high-powered offenses, but pitching is still strong. There's not a lot of strong pitching staffs other than Minnesota. Tampa Bay took a lot of injuries in their staff. Texas had a lot of injuries in theirs with DeGrom, and then Scherzer kind of, I know they're saying Scherzer may be pitching again. We don't know. Baltimore has a good staff, not a great staff. Houston has a good staff, not a great staff. Toronto is, like I said, inconsistent. Minnesota has a really good pitching staff, but there's not a lot of great pitching. So this is a social. My own thinking is this is a social experiment of postseason baseball, whereas pitching has always mattered most in postseason play. I think this year we're going to see offenses have the focal point in the American League playoffs. Who can score the most runs more so than who can get the stop? What pitching staff can hold teams better? That's going to be, I think, what we're looking at, because you have a lot of good offenses, but not a lot of good pitching staff. So Minnesota's the outlier in this situation. With that staff they do have, Sonny Gray's going to get the ball game one for Twins, and he's a Cy Young candidate. I don't think he'll win it just because there's not been a lot of fanfare about Sonny, but he will get a lot of consideration. But they're the only team in the postseason in the American League side that actually has a really good pitching staff. If they can score enough runs, if they allow their pitching staff a chance to win the game for them, then the social experiment fails, because I think offenses are going to be really a high priority in the American League. And if Toronto does win this series and they score, That's going to prove that this is going to be what it is, and baseball is going to be heading in this direction. I think baseball will be heading in this direction where offenses, we already know, they want more offense. Major League Baseball wants that, and they want it in the postseason too. So this is a social experiment I'm kind of considering and looking and watching and about how strong his offense is going to be in the American League compared to the pitching. But I do think that Toronto provides a tougher test because they can score with the Astros more so than I think the Twins can score with the Astros.
JG, pleasure as always. Love getting the baseball insight with you here on the morning show. Thanks for coming on. We will see you next time, sir.
As always, appreciate it.
Always a pleasure having JG here on the show with us. Shout out to everyone who is currently in the chat. Gene is bringing the strong takes this morning. We'd love to see that. We got Dre in the chat. We got Adam in the chat this morning. We got, who else we got in the chat this morning, Mo? We got Jory in the chat. We got Chuck in the chat. We got Coach in the chat. We got Freddie up in the chat this morning.
Freddie Facts?
Yep, Freddie Facts.
Yeah, my camera's all over the map this morning, but so you can't see my smiling face, Chris.
No worries, Mo. No worries. Technical difficulties happen every now and then. But Mo, let's before we get back to the NFL, let's talk about a couple different things. One, Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid tweeted over the weekend about how fun the NFL offseason has been for him. And of course, he is making reference to the fact that the East has added Dame to Milwaukee, making them a championship contender and really a championship favorite as we head into the regular season. And then Boston adds Drew Holiday because maybe it was a direct consequence of the Dame trade. So Boston got a piece, Milwaukee got a piece, and Joel Embiid is looking around like, and I'm still sitting here with James Harden. Mo, what do you think he's feeling?
He's feeling like he's wanting to trade. That's what he's feeling. He's and then look, in reality, here's the situation. Embiid is 28, 29 years old. He just came off an MVP season. A disappointing result in the playoffs, losing to the Celtics, where they clearly had control of that series, could have advanced, and they didn't. And now you have a James Harden who's walking around with signs saying that the GM is a liar and that he will not return to any team that GM is a part of, meaning I'm not going to be with the Sixers. You're Joel Embiid. You just seen two of your primary rivals to win the conference get better, and you're dealing with a soap opera. So I understand his frustration. He's looking around. He's probably looking at Daryl Morey like, what can you do for me? Like, if you can pull off that trade to the Clippers, even if you're bringing back maybe not sexy names, but guys that can help me win. If you're bringing back a Norman Powell, somebody like that, along with some of the other role players that the Clippers had previously offered in a trade, a potential trade with the Sixers, I'd rather you do that than nothing. I'd rather you do that than sit there and go, we're going to keep James no matter what. When you know that James doesn't want to be there. I don't see why you would. It's no better. It's actually much worse than the Damian Lillard situation where Dame basically said, I'm only going to go to Miami. And Portland's GM said, you're going to go where we can make the best deal because Miami's not really trying to make the deal that we want. And what happened? Dame gets sent to Milwaukee, and suddenly Dame's like, well, I can go to Milwaukee. I can play with Giannis. I'm good. That's not the situation that Embiid's dealing with because Harden really right now at this point in his career, Chris, he's a hard act to sell. There are not a lot of title contenders. Matter of fact, I can't think of any title contenders that won his services. I really can't. There might be some fringe playoff teams that could use him if they want him, but he's a difficult act to sell because of his play style. And you have to factor in his age and his commitment issues. Because if you get James Harden on your team, is he going to be happy going forward, or by midseason or late in the playoffs, at some point, is he going to say, I want to move on from you too? So if I'm Joel Embiid, my frustration is everybody else is getting better. My franchise seems to be going the other direction, and I'm not getting any younger. What can you do for me, Daryl Morey?
That is the big question. What can you do for me, Mo? But let's pivot over back to the NFL. Let's go through everything that happened in a crazy week 4 for the NFL. And we're going to start with the Tennessee Titans and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Titans, Mo, put a whooping on the Cincinnati Bengals, 27-3. It was a slow but efficient start for the Bengals. They go 70-plus yards to open the game. They get the field goal. You're thinking, okay, you want the touchdown, but at least you scored. It was a long drive. It was a sustained drive. And then that was pretty much it for the Bengals from that point on. Slow start also for the Titans, but once they got humming on offense, King Henry finished with over 120 yards rushing. Ryan Tannehill was efficient. His accuracy was on point. He had a touchdown and a pick in the end, and it was a rout. Tennessee was better, clearly better, definitively better on both sides of the ball, Mo. But again, I have such a hard time with this because I know Titans fans want to puff their chests out this morning. They want to say, hey, look, hey, us. I get it.
Right.
But at the same time, Joe Burrow couldn't move yesterday. He literally was the definition of a statue in the pocket. He had zero mobility. There were balls that normally that he would get there that he wasn't getting there. And I get it. Tennessee did their thing. They played better all around. But I can't look at this game and not say, man, Burrow just isn't right. And that's what's going to derail this train in Cincinnati this year, Mo.
I'm with you 100%. I'm watching Joe Burrow out there, and I'm watching him move or not be able to move, and you can tell he can't really throw the ball the way he wants to. That plant foot, that plant leg, he can't use it properly, and it's not Joe Burrow we're seeing. And honestly, we talked about this before. I know they got the win versus the Rams. I would sit Joe Burrow. I know what this might say about your season. You dig a hole, even Joe Burrow might not be able to pull you out of. But if you dig that hole and you bring Joe Burrow back, and he's a healthy 100% Joe Burrow, I'd rather that Joe Burrow try to dig a hole out for me. I'd rather go with 100% Joe Burrow, even if we're in a hole, than keep trying to get by with a less than 100%. He's not Joe Burrow right now. He really isn't. And this offense, it's one of the worst in football right now. It really is.
And at least with a healthy Joe Burrow, you're digging up, right? Like you're climbing out of the hole.
Yes, exactly.
With this Joe Burrow, you're just digging deeper down into the hole, Mo.
And you're struggling just to get by. And do you risk your franchise quarterback's health going forward trying to just get by? And I don't think you do. I know people say, well, that means they're going to play the young. Yes. You have to play your young quarterback. You're going to have to adjust the offense, but you do what it takes to get your quarterback, your franchise quarterback, healthy. You get him healthy. If it costs you the season, if it eliminates you from postseason play, then so be it. But you don't risk your franchise quarterback's health.
The Philadelphia Eagles moved to 4-0, taking down the Washington Commanders, a very gamely bunch of Commanders, Mo, after the disaster that was last week for the Commanders versus Dallas. They played well. They hung around the game. They forced overtime. I didn't expect that out of them. The Eagles are still finding their groove on the offensive side of the ball. So credit to them for winning a close game. And we know, Mo, we both know division games can get a little wonky. So even if, a division team is so much better on paper than another division team, when you get into this, when you get into those division games, weird things happen, and you sometimes end up with games closer than you probably should. But at the end of the day, the Eagles take care of business. They move to 4-0. And Mo, I said it once, you've said it, and I'll say it again. When you're finding your way and you're winning games in the process, that just means so much better is coming down the road for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Agreed.
They're 4-0. They will probably tell you they're not where they want to be, that they're still working on A, B, C, and D, which they're going to figure out. They're going to fine tune A, B, C, and D. And by the middle of the season, they're going to be ready to go, and they're going to be where they need to be. And they could still be undefeated at that point. So when you're working through the kinks and you're still winning games, Mo, it's all roses in Philly right now, isn't it?
Like, you can't get better than that to be undefeated and still complain about not playing your best football. And they haven't. If you've watched the Eagles through these first 4 games, they've been inconsistent throughout on both sides of the football. The defense has been far better than the offense. But yesterday, like you said, look, Sam Howell was game. He was very game. I was very impressed with Washington, the way they showed fight. They had opportunities. They had real opportunities to win that football game. Look, if I was Riverboat Ron, I'm just saying I would have been Riverboat Mo. I would have went for the 2. I would have went for the 2. I would have took my shot. But that said, hats off to the Commanders for being really a game opponent. And again, salute to the Eagles, not playing their best football, but finding ways to win. And like you said, Chris, when they're clicking, at some point they're going to be clicking on both sides of the football. That's going to be a scary team to deal with. And they may very well do that and still be undefeated.
100%. Mo, we said it before. I love me some Baker swagger. And the swagger from Baker Mayfield just isn't going anywhere as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roll the New Orleans Saints. Tampa Bay moves to 3-1. The Saints fall to 2-2. Mo, could Tampa Bay be the new favorite to win this division?
If Baker Mayfield's going to play this way throughout the season, he's played very well. Even in the loss to the Eagles, he had moments. I would say this. Right now, we always talk about how it's a quarterback-driven league. We have defaulted this division to the Saints because of their defense, and we thought Derek Carr just had to be solid, and they would win the division in a walk. And right now, the best quarterback in that division is Baker Mayfield. And that Tampa Bay defense, very underrated. I don't think none of us we thought they could be solid, but they've been better than solid. They're a very good football team, and they find ways to win. I really do think that this division is going to come down to the wire. I don't think it's a given that the Saints win it. I've picked them. I think most people have, but it's not going to be in a walk. And the key will be this. What Derek Carr are you going to get from game to game? And that's always been my bugaboo about Derek Carr. I get the talent. I understand why people like him in the locker room. I've never seen him put it together consistently. I think he's had one really good season in his career, and everything else has kind of been all over the place. I just don't view him as highly as most do. I still think the Saints can win the football game. Remember, they did get Kamara back. Kamara will get better in game shape. He will get his timing down. They will be better offensively, but they will only go so far as Derek Carr does. He's got to be able to get the ball to his playmakers and have a clean game and not turn the football over. If he can't do that, then yes. Tampa Bay, look, Baker Magic, when we talk about it, we joke about it, but I'm telling you, man, the league is better when Baker Mayfield is cocky, when he's got that swagger. I'm not a Tampa Bay fan, but I'm clearly invested in Baker Mayfield right now.
Oh, 100%. I am here for it. Mo, in his final 2 years at BYU, Puka Nacua had 43 catches and 48 catches, respectively. Through 4 games in the NFL, the man has 39 catches. He is tearing it up for the Rams. Cooper Kupp is going to be back at some point. The Rams are 2-2 after knocking off the Indianapolis Colts. Mo, I said it. I said it before the season began. I think the Rams can compete for a wild card spot, and I feel like they are proving me right thus far.
I think they are proving you right. Here's the thing, though. With the Rams team, because Matthew Stafford is as talented as he is a rhythm quarterback. And if the O-line does a solid job, then Matthew Stafford can pick teams apart. But when they get pushed literally back into his chest like they were against Cincinnati, then Matthew Stafford's going to struggle. The team's going to struggle. Yesterday, I thought he did a really good job of just taking his first and second reads. I mean, he gave the defense little to no time to get to him. When Matthew Stafford is on like that, the Rams are scary. And like you said, this kid, no one ever heard of him. Hey, look, if you knew he was going to be the receiver that he is now, everybody would have wanted him. Mind you now, like you pointed out, Cooper Kupp's going to come back. That offense will be that much more dynamic because Kupp will draw double teams. He will draw more attention, making the other receivers that much more dynamic. So I really do think offensively, the Rams are scary. They really are. As long as you protect Stafford and he can plant that foot, you're in trouble.
Mo, Colin Cowherd says this all the time, and I am a firm believer in it. And that is that you can think two things are correct at one time. And when it comes to the Houston Texans and the Pittsburgh Steelers, I firmly believe there are two things that are correct. I believe that the Steelers are a lot worse than people said they were going to be. And I believe that the Texans are a little bit better than people said they were going to be. And I think both of those things were on display in this game where the Texans rolled the Steelers 30-6. And this was before the Kenny Pickett injury, because the Texans were rolling them before Pickett went out hurt. And now with Pickett down, it's not going to spell anything better for the 2-2 Pittsburgh Steelers. Both teams are now 2-2 heading into week 5, and I think they are going in complete opposite directions. I like what Houston is doing. I'm not ready to say Houston is going to compete for a playoff spot. I think they have a little more ways to go before we start having that conversation. I didn't like Pittsburgh coming into the season, and I didn't think Pittsburgh was going to compete for a playoff spot, and they seem to be fulfilling that trajectory. Mo, where do you sit on these two teams over the next 3 or 4 weeks as far as where they're going to be, at the midway point in the season?
With Houston, with a DeMeco Ryans as your head coach, this is a good football team defensively. You know they're going to be competitive and compete hard defensively. What I'm most impressed with is the quick development of CJ Stroud. He seems to get better from week to week. And they don't lack confidence in him because they've opened up the full playbook. He's pushing the ball down the field. He's not just dunking his way down the field. And you can tell that the skilled position players around him, they're buying into everything he can do. He looks like a natural leader out there. When you've got a quarterback that young, that has that kind of poise and leadership about him, instantly, it galvanizes your team. I think the Texans, I don't want to say anything crazy, but I will say this, big picture, if you're looking at the two teams and the paths they're on, this might very well be the first time Mike Tomlin doesn't have a winning season, doesn't go 500. And you're right, but before the injury, Pickett wasn't killing it anyway. I didn't have the Steelers being that good this season because I wasn't impressed with their offense. I wasn't. And defensively, yes, they can get after you, but they've got some holes in that defense. They're not a dominant defensive team. They have a couple of playmakers at each level, but as an overall football team, there's a lot of holes in that Steelers defense. So I really do think if Mike Tomlin can get this team close to 500 or above 500, he has to be coach of the year. I just don't think this is that good a football team. Not talent-wise. And versus what Houston can do, it wouldn't surprise me if Houston wins 8 or 9 games. I really believe that because I think that DeMeco Ryans has a plan, and he might be ahead of schedule because right now, to me, Stroud is ahead of schedule.
Mo, the NFL from week to week, literally any team can beat any team, and we saw that a handful of times this week. But not just any team can beat any team. From week to week, any team can pretty much get blown out. And look what happened to the Cleveland Browns. They get rolled by Baltimore 28-3, a Cleveland team that after hitting the 2-1 mark, people were like, hey, all right, Deshaun played well. This defense is a good defense. They could really be turning a corner heading into the quarter season mark with Baltimore coming up next week. And then they lay an egg. And Baltimore looks like a world beater against Cleveland. They move to 3-1. Pittsburgh's having their woes over there. Cincinnati's having their woes. And if you're a Baltimore fan, you wake up this morning, Mo, thinking this is our division. And who is going to stand in our way? It's not going to be Joe Burrow and the Bengals. It's not going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers who just lost their quarterback. We don't know how long, but they haven't looked great either. And then we just rolled the Cleveland Browns, so we're not worried about them. So a lot can change week to week in the NFL, and Ravens fans, Mo, have to be feeling pretty good this morning.
They really do. And that line about week to week, I don't think that applies more in any sport or any league than in the NFL. I'm recalling our picks, and I'm like, man, I got killed on picks this week. They're just things that you can't foresee sometimes, and I get that the line any given Sunday, but it really does apply to the National Football League. the better team can lose if you don't value the football and you turn the football over, or someone on the other team plays out of their mind, something you can't foresee happening, and it does from time to time. I'm looking at how they got blown out, and I was sitting there thinking, as good as that defense is, we talked about this. If your offense goes 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out over and over again, it does wear on your defense. It takes a toll on your defense. And I really think that was the case. I looked at the game and I thought, man, if they could just get a little bit quarterback play, they were getting nothing from Deshaun. He was horrible. They got nothing from him, and there were opportunities where he could take off, and it seemed like he was hesitant to use his legs. And I'm like, dude, one of the things that separates you from a lot of quarterbacks is you can take off. If you have to help your team win with your legs, then help your team win with your legs, but do something to give your defense some rest. And he just didn't do it. Get props to the Ravens. Right now, they look like they have a stranglehold on the division.
Mo, going from a quarterback who did nothing to a quarterback who did everything but still lost, Justin Fields had a career day yesterday. 335 yards passing, completing 80% of his throws, 4 touchdown passes, but his defense collapses against Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. The Bears end up losing that game 31-28. The Bears fall to 0-4, and easily the best game of his career is completely wasted because the defense, which, by the way, that is the head coach's side of the ball, the defense could not hold off the 0-3 Russell Wilson-led Denver Broncos.
You actually called this. You said you could see Fields putting up big numbers, but maybe that wouldn't be enough for them to win the game. And he was even better than you could probably project.
Way better.
Not just with his legs, but with his arms. Like, this guy, I think he only had like 3 or 4 incompletions. Like, he was that on point. He did everything right, and all he needed was his defense to do their share. And you said it. Your coach is a defensive football coach. What's going on? Because when your offense, when that offense puts up 28 points, that should mean you win. It really should. When your quarterback, your young quarterback, is that efficient, plays that well, that's supposed to be a victory. You lose to a bad, let's say, a bad Broncos team. Now, and I do want to credit Denver for finding a way to come back and win. Credit where credit is due. But that was Chicago's game, and they found a way to lose that.
No, 100%. Rough day if you were a Dolphin fan yesterday. The Bills blow out Miami 48-20. Competitive game for the first quarter and a half. They traded touchdowns into the second quarter, 14-14. And then things just kind of went off the rails for the Dolphins. Miami could not cover Stephon Diggs yesterday. No idea why they kept Kader Kohou on Diggs the entire game. After the game, Xavier Howard basically, without being too disrespectful, basically said that he wished that he had an opportunity to cover Diggs yesterday, but he understands that Vic Fangio's defense is more about flow and scheme as opposed to having one player shadow somebody else. I will say this, hats off to the Buffalo defense. They are much better than I thought they were, Mo. As far as the offense goes, the first 3 quarters, I mean, they had a deep ball to Diggs. There was poor tackling. As far as the offense goes, I didn't do anything mind-blowing. It's not like they were blowing Miami up down the field. Miami needs to tackle better, obviously. But the one thing I will say is that Buffalo has successfully managed to go away from Josh Allen running around. And because they have gone away from that, his decision-making has improved. So there was only 2 plays yesterday in that game where Allen left the pocket and things really started to break down. And on one play, he threw a touchdown pass. And the other play, he almost threw an interception. And that's what Josh Allen does, right? That's when things break down and he's forced to get out there and start winging things. It's basically 50-50 what you're going to get. But when he only has to do that 2 or 3 times a game, one of those times you're probably going to get a touchdown. And you just hope the other 2 times it's incomplete. And then you roll on with it.
Agreed.
It's when he does that 10, 12, 15 times a game that you start to see the mistakes. You start to see 2 or 3 picks. You start to see him missing throws. And the fact that Buffalo has stopped him from doing that and they have kind of found a running game, and they have fine-tuned the offense to where he's staying in the pocket, and he hit a lot of dump down passes, which were effective. And that mindset change is going to help Buffalo come playoff time. Now, I will say this for Miami, it is just one game. They haven't beat Buffalo in 4 seasons. Josh Allen is undefeated against Miami in Buffalo over his career. Miami does tend to win games against Buffalo in Miami, so we'll see what happens when they meet down there. So I'm not going to say end of the world for the Dolphins because they just don't beat Buffalo in Buffalo for whatever reason. But again, not a good look for the Dolphins defense. There's a lot of holes that they have to fix on that side of the ball. And props to the Buffalo defense for shutting down the number 1 offense in the league. Your thoughts, Mo?
As I'm watching the game, I realize, and you can tell that the Buffalo defensive coordinator used a lot of film from the Patriots game.
Mm-hmm.
They adjusted their scheme and literally played the Dolphins the way the Patriots played them. And so everything was you're going to keep the receivers in front of you. Everything underneath is on the table, and you just have to be sure at tackling, which they were to their credit. They tackled well, and and both of their defensive ends were told with Tua, if you can't get to him, use your arms to deflect, jump, and they did all those things. That is how you throw Tua off of his rhythm. You get to him in different ways without actually getting to him. So I give Buffalo's defensive coordinator a lot of credit for the way he schemed, or the way he at least copied Bill Belichick's scheme, and it worked. So with the Dolphins, I think you've got to realize certain teams can play you that way. They've got to adjust to that. And really what they have to do, to me, is just show more patience. Like, you know what, if it's not there, maybe this series we come out running more. Just running more. We'll just see. It's not going to be a game where Tua throws for 300 yards. It might be one of those games he throws for 210 or 220, and that's okay as long as you win. I thought Buffalo controlled them, but I thought where Miami got hurt is with the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Had their defense have how they had been all year long, this game would have been a lot closer and it would have played out differently. There are going to be games where teams basically say, we're going to slow you down, we're going to control possession of the ball, and we're going to milk the clock so your offense stays off the field, because you don't want to get into a shootout with that offense. So they're going to have to show more patience. But look, the 20 points, yes, it's a disappointment, but I would be more just disappointed at the defense, because like you said, the tackling was poor. I have all the faith in Nick Fangio because he's got a history. He knows what he's doing. I would have just said at some point, though, when Diggs is doing what he was doing, maybe break from scheme a little bit. Just a little bit, right? I'm just saying, just a little bit, because clearly the way you were playing him within the scheme, that wasn't working. But it's one game. It's one game. And you pointed out something that I think is so important. If Josh Allen can show a degree of patience, he's going to be a better quarterback. If he can pull back and basically control himself, then Buffalo's going to be a better football team. It's as simple as that. But do I think they're better than Miami? They were better than Miami yesterday. Let's see what happens when they meet again down the road.
And Dolphin fans, Giants are coming up next. Panthers are coming up next. So hopefully Miami can kind of right the ship defensively. Those are 2 winnable games. And then if those go as planned, you're looking at a 5-1 Dolphins team, probably against an undefeated Eagles team in 3 weeks for another great showdown. So
that's
we'll
going to
see
be
what
a great
happens.
matchup.
100%. Mo, your team moving to 4-0. Only 2 undefeated teams left in the league, and they're both in the NFC, the Eagles and the 49ers. It was closer than we thought early, but, you know, the Niners have so much talent. CMC, 4 touchdowns yesterday. At the end of the day, you know, the Cardinals are definitely a feisty team, and I think that they're proving that. They fell down early by a couple of touchdowns. They kind of got back into it for a little bit, but not really. And then the Niners just put them away. So props to the Cardinals for being feisty, feistier than we thought they were going to be. But the Niners are looking good, Mo.
They are looking good. And look, if you watch the game, do they have holes? Defensively, yes. If you can spread them out, Their corners struggle with double moves. They're not really good, really one-on-one corners. They're better in zone coverage. But if the front seven can dictate your offense, that's different. So yes, you can attack them in certain ways, but not every offense has that ability. Look, let's give credit where credit is due. You say feisty. Look, Joshua Dobbs is balling.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's balling. He didn't even have his best game, but there were times in the games where he made plays with his legs or his arms, and they seem to be buying into him. So I like the description that Arizona's feisty. I will say this: anybody that plays Arizona, they're not an easy out. They're not an easy win. They're competing because a lot of these guys they got pride. They're not trying to get the number one pick. They're trying to win football games, and I admire that in them. The Niners have done well, but look, the key to the Niners, McCaffrey right now, he's been a beast all year long, and his ability to get in and out of cuts and make people miss and run between the tackles with that burst, he's just an impressive football player. And then we get back a healthy Brandon Ayuk, who I keep telling people, I know Debo's a bigger name. Ayuk is their best receiver.
He stirs the offense. He is the straw that stirs that offense, Mo.
Yep. And Brock Purdy, you got one job. You run the system, you don't turn the football over, and you're good to go. It's a good football team. I'm curious to see what happens when they come up against stiffer competition, because I do think, even as a Niner fan, there are some flaws, and I'm interested to see how they respond once somebody challenges them.
Dallas rolled the Patriots yesterday, 35-point victory, largest loss ever suffered by Bill Belichick. Mac Jones was actually benched at one point during the game for Zappy. Didn't make a difference. The Dallas Cowboy defense is elite. It is next level. It has the ability to do these types of things week in and week out. And, you know, like we just said, Mo, the NFL is a week-to-week league. We saw the Dallas Cowboys lose to the Arizona Cardinals, and then they come back and they absolutely obliterate a Bill Belichick team. This is the NFL that we live in. Week to week, you see these kind of things pop up, and that's why it's such a grind and it's such a long season, and it's about staying healthy and growing and progressing and matchups and all that sort of stuff. But one thing, Mo, that I think we can say for sure is that the New England Patriots are simply not a good football team. They have a decent defense, but offensively, there is no real identity. Now we apparently have a quarterback controversy. The broadcast tried to downplay it. You know, they're basically like, well, you know, Mac Jones was having a tough game. You might as well get him out of there. Don't risk injury. That's not what Bill Belichick was doing. Bill Belichick, it's been documented, he doesn't really care for Mac Jones. They're not best friends. He wasn't even best friends with Tom Brady, and Tom Brady was a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Right.
So if you can't even go to dinner with Tom Brady, and it literally looks like you're handcuffing Mac Jones at every turn, clearly your relationship isn't great, and it's not going to get better when you're pulling him out of the game. And Bill Belichick didn't come to the podium after the game and say, well, you know, it was just one of those days. We're trying to protect Mac. We don't want him taking shots he shouldn't be taking. No, he didn't do that. And he's not going to do that because Bill Belichick was upset with how Mac Jones was playing, and he wanted him out of there. So he pulled him out of there. So now we're going to ask the questions. Who is going to be the starting quarterback for the Patriots this week? And Bill Belichick's not going to give you an answer because that's what Bill Belichick does. But now you have to wonder, next time the Patriots get blown out, are we going to pull Mac Jones? Next time Mac Jones throws 2 picks in the first half, are we going to pull Mac Jones? Once you open that door, Mo, that's a question we're going to ask for the rest of the season.
The more I watch Mac Jones, the more I'm certain of two things. He is a bona fide NFL quarterback. And if he were in his right position as a backup quarterback, the Patriots would have the best backup quarterback in football. I don't think Mac Jones is a good starting quarterback. He's just so many things have to go right. You know, you talk about Jimmy G, and if you put talent around him, he can make that talent work. I agree with that, but I would say that Jimmy G is better than Mac Jones. I just don't think Mac Jones is. So many things have to work for Mac Jones to work. Like, he can't push the ball down the football field. He's got a candy arm. He's not the most mobile guy. And then, you know, if you could spin this and go, well, he doesn't have none of those great physical traits, but he can read defenses. He can dissect coverages, and so he can beat you mentally. And he's not that guy either. So I think, look, Belichick's frustration, he'll never say this, is I've yet to find the guy to replace Tom Brady. And it's hard to replace the greatest football player, the greatest quarterback anyway of all time. It's just hard. He hasn't found that guy. Mac Jones is a good football player. There's no debate. I don't think he's a very good starting quarterback. And to be fair, if you're a Mac Jones fan, you're right. You don't have a lot of talent on the outside. There is no number one receiver on your roster. You just got a bunch of guys out there, and that's true. You don't have great playmakers. But your offensive line isn't great either. You have two solid running backs, and they look bad, but they're not running the football bad. They're getting hit in the backfield. So I can understand. Mac Jones can make the case, what am I supposed to do? Guys can't get separation. I don't have time to throw the football. He can make that strong case. I look at the Patriots, and they're just in disarray. Good defense, weak offense, and I still think they're still looking for their next starting quarterback, and they just haven't found him yet.
Mo, you know what type of quarterback you have when you go to YouTube and you search Mac Jones's name, and most of the videos that pop up are what he does after he throws picks when he's trying to tackle offensive players. That's what you find on Mac Jones when you go YouTube him. You look at the quote dirty plays that he makes when he's trying to tackle people after he throws interceptions.
Oh yeah, you know what? I've actually seen a few of those. Yeah.
That's how you know what type of quarterback you have when those are the things that are being highlighted. When it should be, touchdown passes, runs, winning games. But no, Mac Jones is highlighted by his alleged dirtiness. Looking at the Chargers, Mo, just keep trying to give away games. They really wanted the Raiders to win yesterday. Unfortunately, the Raiders just were not able to do so. It had Jimmy G played that game, I think the Raiders win that game because, again, the Chargers really tried to hand that game to them. Unfortunately, the Raiders had a backup quarterback in there. There were way too many turnovers to overcome, especially in the red zone. And despite the he had a flesh wound. Despite the flesh wound on Justin Herbert's left hand, he was able to guide the Chargers to a victory, get them to 2-2. But Mo, I'm not really confident in what I see in the Chargers right now. Their offense is good. I'm not going to criticize that, but there's moments where it's not good. And then the defense is just, I know they held Las Vegas to 17 points, but when Vegas is turning over the ball as much as they were, and you're not finding a way to put this game away earlier, that's a concern for me.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I'm watching the game, and I'm thinking early on this is going to be a blowout, right? Vegas has nothing to bring to the table. They don't even have their starting quarterback. This is going to be a blowout. And yet, when you watch the Chargers play on both sides of the ball, but more importantly on defense, there's no sense of urgency. Like you said, you beat there are teams in the NFL that you're supposed to beat, and the idea is to let them know early they have no shot. This game is over. We're going to win. We're just better than you. And the Chargers seem to have the mentality, no, we'll let you into a game. We'll let you stay around. We're open for business to give everybody a chance to beat us. We're all about making games exciting for the fans. So why beat you convincingly when we can make it very close and make it a nail biter and give the fans their money's worth? That's what I feel about the Chargers. They don't have the killer instinct, and that probably starts with their head coach.
Well, Mo, maybe he just likes warm seats. Maybe that's what his deal is. Maybe he's gotten really comfortable with his heated seat, and he's like, I don't want to go back to the cold chair, so we're just going to keep it toasty.
That might be the case. I know Justin Herbert's got to be. Nobody can be more frustrated than that young man. He has to be frustrated. I'm not pointing fingers at the defense or anything like that, but there's just a vibe that something's just not right there. And I know they keep hanging on to Staley. They keep giving him chances. You don't want to make a coaching change 4 weeks into the season. I totally understand that, but I don't know if the team listens to him. I don't think they hear his voice anymore. If they ever did, there's a void there, and as long as that void is there, it's going to hamper their chances of going to the playoffs.
Mo, we got football tonight, sir. Monday Night Football. It is going to be the Seattle Seahawks, the 2-1 Seattle Seahawks, heading to the 1-2 New York Giants. I like Seattle a lot tonight, Mo. I like what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball. I do think that Daniel Jones and the Giants are going to have some success putting up points. I'm not in love with the Seattle Seahawks defense. I do think there is potential for the Giants to move the ball. I just don't think the Giants are going to find enough offense to beat Seattle tonight. I'm taking Seattle tonight, Mo. I'm thinking 31-20-ish is going to be our final score, but I'm going Seattle.
I've got Seattle winning. I don't think the Giants just don't have enough firepower. They don't, out now, period. Offensively, they lack the firepower. I'm not the biggest Daniel Jones fan. I do understand his potential and what he could be, but I'm only judging him off of what he is. That said, going off our picks this past weekend, what do I know? How do I know the Giants don't beat them 38-17 and Daniel Jones throws for 400 yards? It's all on the table, but I'm going to go with conventional wisdom. I think Seattle's the better team. They're the more explosive team. They have talent on the outside. Geno's playing good football. I think Seattle finds a way to win.
All right, Mo, and that's going to wrap up our show this morning. Shout out to everyone who was there in the chat with us. We appreciate all of you. Mo, close us out, sir.
Hey, guys, thanks for listening to the morning show with Chris and Mo. Check out all the great content we have on Sports Empire Network. We appreciate you guys. Smash that like button. Check out the content on the Empire. Check out the Empire.
We will see you right here, same time, same place tomorrow. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show with Chris and Mo here on Sports Empire Network. Until tomorrow.